All right, so welcome to line drawing. The idea here is you're gonna take a pen, a blank sheet of paper, and make one line and continue it and make something beautiful. So let's just get into it. The idea is to kind of use these overlapping patterns to kind of create something sensible out of nothing. And you just start by sketching, and this is kind of the way I tend to do it. These long loopy circles, going way off here, going around. There's a lot of uniformity right now in what I'm doing. You can see there's similar space between everything. And so I might want to start to mix that up. That's why I took that big circle. Oh, here's a weird one. Let's get even closer there. Let's do something more detailed here. And what happens is these seemingly random little things become a cohesive piece, but throughout the process, you're pretty convinced, or at least you have to fight that voice that tells you that they're stupid and that they're bad. This isn't about each individual stroke, each individual little design. It's about how the overall thing comes together. And so in this type of drawing, almost any mistake can be turned into something good unless you cross your lines. The one thing you don't want to do is cross your lines. You want to keep it all separate. That just makes it far more visually cohesive and appealing. And it's really just the idea of this thing. You're having a line that never touches, and so it looks like an endless maze. And you really want to play with space. If everything's all tight together, there's going to be no structure. But if you start to isolate some space, like right there, I just cut off this whole chunk of space. And now I build some structure on top of it. And be spontaneous. At first I started drawing a flower there. I was about to go around the whole circle, and then I decided to make these loops above, flower, flower, flower. Oop, now we're going crazy here. That's what's fun about it. And this is a great technique for people who struggle with anxiety and perfectionism because it forces you to flow, it forces you to be present. Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to relax. Take a pause. Consider where you're going. Maybe start off with the other line, but right now I'm feeling good on this line. I feel like this line has the movement, so I stick with it. And that's kind of how you want to think with this. Where's the movement? Where's the energy? Don't force it. Oop, there we go. Something crazy being built now. But you gotta be patient with this. It takes some time. I'm gonna make that another balloon. In my mind, that was a hot air balloon. Let your mind invent shapes, invent stories, invent concepts. Don't deny anything that comes up in that free state. So my free thinking state was just like, ooh, hot air balloon. Go with it. Free thinking state was flower. Oh, turning into something else. Go with it. This isn't about mistakes. You can always start over. And just be careful not to cross your lines. So, maybe you want to turn the paper over, get a whole new angle on the thing, see what's being built. And keep going. This should be fun. It should be peaceful. It should be expressing what you need to get out. If you are feeling anxious with all these little lines, make something huge, shoot out. Maybe that looks crazy and wild now, but it might become a cohesive piece, a cohesive part of the overall piece after. Okay, so what are we gonna do with this now? The idea of a snake came into mind, so I rolled with it. I'm feeling a voice of judgment come in saying this is weird and lame what you're doing. You're rushing, you don't have the energy. Oop, very close there. Almost hit the line. And that's what usually happens. So in this case, I think I was feeling some rushing happening, some judgment. And that combination of rushing and judgment usually leads to mistake. The only mistakes are when you cross your line. And you only cross your line when you're rushing. It's not really possible to do it when you're present. This painting style can be tiring, so be careful. Take your time, pause. It's not about the destination. You're not trying to just create some masterpiece. You're learning a practice. You're not just learning how to do it perfectly, you're just learning how to do it. In the same way that you learn how to stretch or run or climb trees or play guitar, it's not just to become amazing and create great stuff. It's to be able to have it as a thing to do because it's fun to express through it. These feel like little weird hands coming off. Just gonna keep this in the frame a little better. Just getting started on these videos. Appreciate you hanging in. Getting into a tight space here. Thought about going back into it, back inside of it, but then all that space would be gone. And with all that space gone, it might actually lose the sensation that I'm enjoying from it. So, oops, sorry about that. So, I thought about going back in here, but then I kind of second-guessed it because if I went in, I'd busy up this space, and if I lost the space, I might lose what actually is enjoyable about this spot. So, decided to keep going this time. It's a lesson I've learned personally. And often it's best for us to learn our lessons ourselves. Some people like to just hear other people's lessons and just absorb them without having learned them themselves. I've discovered that I'm the type of person who has to make them himself. I have to make my own mistakes. I have to learn my own lessons. And that comes from a combination of trial and error, but also focus and listening. If you're listening really well, you'll be able to learn from your mistakes much faster. And if you're not listening well, you're going to keep making the same mistakes and fighting them and saying, why is that happening? Why is that happening? When the answer was pretty clear. I learned this mistake pretty early on about space. You have to keep space for these types of drawings to be good. Here I could go into another snake shape, but there's so many more interesting things I could be doing. And I feel like I gotta spice it up a little. The only other times you cross your lines, aside from being rushing and judgment, is when you're in a flow state in these tight spaces. And that might be the only excusable time to cross your line, because you were trying something new and you were in a great state. It's like, that's the type of falling that's good in the sport of making a mistake, is you were actually on a tear doing so well in the exact flow state we want you to be in, but you just went a little too far. That is a much more positive learning experience than the experience of just rushing and crossing your line completely unnecessarily. Oops, that was a tough connection there. Even those little things will affect the overall aesthetic of the thing by the end. Because where your lines cross just stands out. It looks so much darker than the rest of the image. And that's the one risk of picking your pen up, is you have to make sure when you put it back down, it's very exact, right on that line it was. Oop. Right there, I got close. Yeah, you want to make sure it's right on the same spot with the same density and with some sort of flow. If it comes out as a big smudge on your first hit, like that, I chose to make some space because that's less risky than going too hard. Oh, there's my other line. So be careful of not trapping that line, because it has to get out and do something eventually. And we just keep exploring like this. Alright, so coming back to this, we're going to start to speed along here. Just had a nice walk outside in the snow. Oh, and almost made a mistake right off the bat. Trying to tell you a story while I'm in this drawing is a little harder than I expected. Because it really does require presence. You're painting your emotions. What are you feeling? You don't necessarily know. But this helps you flow along. Oh, there's my original line. I want to be careful not to lock that in, because ultimately you want these two lines to connect. Get weird, get funky, or get obsessive. Get perfectionist, do whatever you gotta do. Well, maybe not too perfectionist, but get detailed. Do whatever gets you the most engaged. Maybe it's working through those tight spaces that actually brings you the most joy in this, the most presence and focus. In which case, go into them. Sometimes the big looping structures can kind of create some anxiety almost. I've kind of fallen in love with this technique of just doing random loops. But really you can do anything. Like, just for example, I don't like right angles in general, but let's just say you wanted to like carve out a rectangle. Like, that rectangle now has its own space. That rectangle now forever alters this whole thing. Kind of adds a new element. Sometimes you might randomly think of a friend. Let them hang out in the mind for a bit. Let yourself process while you do this. We're not here trying to make the best painting, the best anything. We don't even know what we're making. But we know when we follow this process and we let it genuinely interact with our energy and our mood and our thoughts and emotions, that something interesting will come out. And if we spend too much time thinking we know what we're doing, and going on autopilot, that's when you get a boring painting. And here I have officially locked myself. So I just got so carried away in this drawing. And this is one of the mistakes that, or no, maybe not a mistake, maybe this will just be a different type of drawing where the lines don't connect, but I cannot get out of here. There's no way for this line to get out of this lock. I can try to go around here, and then I get locked in here, here. I can potentially go all the way around, but it's just get locked. So there's no way up. So that line stays stuck. I can try to doodle around in here, but I kind of like the space of this trapezoidish thing here, so I'm going to leave it. And now we have one line. So, and this is what happens as the drawing gets bigger, as the decisions get more consequential, is that there comes a point where you lock yourself if you're not careful. And it doesn't really you don't have to avoid locking yourself. That can be part of your acceptance. Like, you know what? I'm going to play with this drawing and eventually it'll lock myself, and that'll be my signal that the drawing's over. And that works perfectly too. Right now we got this line all over here, and we got a lot of space over here, and we want to start to think of how this is going to become a cohesive drawing. Oh, there's some loss there. And I think I'm losing a little bit of my spark here. And so that's also important to notice energetically. Oh, am I lulled? Am I falling into a daze? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Usually a deep breath can kind of resettle it. I think I want to eventually get around to that rectangle and maybe end up there. How do I want to dance with this snake structure? If I go too far in the grooves, they lose their power. So I dance outside of them this time. Oop, and that's a tight one. There's a cross, so this video is helpful because you get to see two of the ways unexpected things happen. Right there, my line's pretty much touched. That kind of affects the aesthetic perfection afterwards. But again, it's not perfection we're looking for, but we also don't want to rush. Don't get hasty. It's something I have to battle all the time with drawing. And I'm gonna sneak on out. That was interesting, like gravity wanted me to pull right in here and do another loop, and instead I went the other way. And that creates an interesting shape. And I'm wary here of the edge, but also aware that this might be my last time to doodle in this region because things are starting to get tight. A little extra doodle in here. I love this stuff. This is where it gets really fun, when I'm dealing with a boundary. And I'm kind of dancing in it, carefree, aware that I could fuck myself over. But also aware that the magic comes when you almost fuck yourself over. Ooh. Kind of ruined a little bit of this hand structure here, all that doodling. But maybe it can kind of have some benefit later. But that's just something to keep in mind. If you have an existing shape that has a lot of personality, and you do a ton of busy doodling next to it, that shape is now gone pretty much. All right, here we are coming around. Here I think there's some tape on the edge of my paper, so this line didn't work well. But I think this one has got a couple minutes left of drawing about. Thank you so much for hanging out. Just gonna try to keep these as natural as possible. Speaking more soft because that's the energy of this intimacy. I'm up close with the paper. And I want you guys to really feel that. Oops, there's a little random shape. Oop, there's another touch, and getting a little crazy. I don't love this last area I've been doing. I feel like it's been a little rushed. I've been too aware of the upcoming ending, but that's not permanent. Some gentle, steadier personality can come after. It already looks a little better. Part of me wants to go across that sea. But I'm gonna leave it because I worry I might get too busy. Don't feel like you have to trace everything exact. So see, I'm going around this edge, tracing it, and then instead of going all the way around this edge, I jump to another edge. That creates space. That creates a locked image of some sort of T-Rex head or something, however you see it. I see it as an upside down T-Rex head. You just have to let your imagination see what it sees. That's the way you'll start to get cohesive shapes. I see that as like a little sea urchin, sea anemone thing on the forest floor. For some reason, that's the shape that goes off in my head there. And I'm starting to wish I did do a little bit more over here. So I think I'm gonna take that risk and venture backwards. Being careful to add a little bit of variation so it's not just a pure line going across, because that can be felt. You can almost feel it when someone's like, oh, when someone's trying to get to an old area and just treating the intermediary area as just like flyover states, you know? All right, so here I am, totally altering this shape here. And here it goes, back yonder. Think about your surface. I put papers underneath because there are some ridges on this surface that will make my pen kind of jut out. And so some paper underneath can kind of steady that for you. Soften the pad that you're writing on. Because this is a very flowing thing. Your hand has to flow along the page. Oops, there's another touch. Now hopefully those don't cause too many problems at the end, but they are something to be aware of. And ultimately they are the signal of when I'm focused. All right, here we are back at the rectangle. This is a cool moment. That rectangle was a real surprise. How do we want to treat it? Loop it, almost like a rear view mirror. That's interesting. And most of this one is done. You can see kind of the zoom in on different parts. I could add a little bit more detail, but overall, we got a lot going on here. The only thing I might do is add a little bit more busyness up in this corner. Loop this guy back around, but I'm worried about making this a triple. So how can I avoid that? There really is no way to avoid that. But just for the sake of showing you, let's do it. I'm gonna make two little ears on it. And now that gave us some more space to work with. But definitely changed the personality of that rearview mirror. Like, it's just not the same thing anymore. I think we're here. We have arrived. I cannot reach that final point. And that's okay. My eyes are getting a little tired. My energy's fading. But that is perfect timing. And what do you want to end it with? A little heart. And these things really don't have to end, but you want to be aware that if you go too far, you kind of ruin some integrity. So, here we are. Hope you can see almost that whole thing. We're going to call this line drawing, one line drawing, continuous line drawing, drippy line drawing, whatever you want to call it. Hope you enjoy. Stay tuned for more.